throughout the week. He's going to talk about the Ravens with us and so much more. Everyone, put your hands together for the one, the only, waiting so patiently backstage, Kevin Oestreicher. He's back here. He's on the flex zone. Kevin, what's going on, my good brother?
What's going on, guys? If I have to say, that intro music was
Well, thank you.
up, ready to talk, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Kevin, let's get into it. I mean, we know who you are, but for those who may be seeing you for the first time and seeing you here on the podcast, who are you? How can I keep up with you, and what do you contribute? Because I don't think you ever sleep.
I do not. You were talking about how it's late. This is actually about dinner time for me. My schedule used to be really bad. Used to be I slept anywhere from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are past that now, though. It is now in the 4 a.m. to 12 p.m., 11 a.m. range, because I do make my own hours doing this. I host and produce Locked On Ravens 5 days a week. I write for USA Today, the Ravens Wire over there. I also, as you mentioned, I go on 105.7 at least once a week. I also do work for Bleacher Report. I work for the Ryan Ripken Show doing Orioles, Ravens content. So very involved in the Baltimore sports community. It's a grind, but I love doing it.
Hey, love it.
Go ahead, Dre. You can go ahead and get right into it. I know you got a lot of questions for him.
All right. Let's get right into it. Like you said, a Baltimore Ravens question. Right now, you have Hassan Reddick out there, and we've talked about the Ravens needing a pass rusher, but there's also Brandon Ayuk, and we said that Ravens could probably need another person on the wide receiver end. Who do you think the Ravens should try to trade for?
Out of those two, I would probably pick Reddick right now. I know that there's a lot of just uncertainty with him right now. We don't really know what the heck's going on over there in New York, but in terms of actual need, it feels very weird to say the Ravens don't necessarily need a wide receiver. They could certainly use one. Brandon Ayuk would automatically become the top receiver in that offense. But their pass rush, there's a lot of uncertainty because they lost Jadeveon Clowney. He's now down in Carolina with the Panthers. And they brought back Kyle Van Noy. That was a win for them. But other than that, they're going to be relying on a bunch of young players. Can Odafe Owe take a next step? Can David Ajabo be healthy? They have a couple of other mid-round picks they're relying on. Reddick would instantly become the star of that pass rusher group. And assuming that they're able to agree on a contract and get that all worked out, whatever he would want, it fills the more immediate need for them. I think the Ravens can get by with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and those receivers if that group can stay healthy because they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. And those two are also pass catchers that can contribute in that offense. The thing with Reddick, though, and this is also for Ayuk too, is those contracts are going to be some hefty ones. I know Ayuk wants upwards of $30 million a season. Reddick probably wants in that range too. If I had to pick a realistic option, a name that you didn't mention there, I'd probably say Matthew Judon might be someone that the Ravens could look at just because he's only playing on, I think it's about $6 or $7 million as his cap hit this season. The Ravens don't really have a lot of money. They could restructure some guys, but they don't really love doing that. Judon would represent, and he's not Hassan Reddick, but he would be about 80%, 70% of the player, assuming he can stay healthy and you have him for 3 times less money. 4 times less money. I think that he would fit into Baltimore's cap situation more. So again, I've been kind of banging the table for the Ravens to get a veteran wide receiver for Lamar forever. I think he deserves it, and I hope one day he'll get it. But right now, I think that edge rusher is the bigger priority for him.
So you're in favor of because I know Judon's been here before, but you're saying that they should bring him back on contract.
Yeah, I think it would be. I don't really see the allure of him playing in New England anymore. Like they're going through a rebuild stage. He wants a new contract. I feel like he wants to go to a place where he can try to win. I feel like he has one more good deal left. Like he can go out there and get a good deal. They would have, because the issue with Judon is he doesn't want to play under that 6.5 because he knows that he's better than that. So he wants a contract that represents his value. So I think that money would be less than Hassan Reddick's and what his number is. And if they wanted to give him more of a backloaded deal, they can fit into their salary cap situation now, maybe a 4-year deal that is technically a 3-year deal they can get out of, or a 3-year deal is a 2-year deal, or whatever it may be. I mean, he liked it in Baltimore. Not that he doesn't like it in New England, but he had good times here, and I feel like he would be welcomed back to the team with open arms. I feel like that out of Ayuk, Reddick, anybody else that's available, I feel like he might be the most realistic option.
Let's be honest, he doesn't like it in New England.
Maybe not anymore.
Those days are long.
No,
long.
nobody's liked it in New England since Brady.
It's cold out the TB12. Like it's cold. It's colder up there. It's much colder up there, man.
I got a question for you. We didn't seen the preseason game on Friday. We seen injuries, with Wiggins and in practice Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah. For
Wiggins, now I noticed that he did play great in that first half of the game, and he had 3, I think, pass deflections, and he covered his men very well. My problem is with him is his weight. I think he's a great player, but I think he might need to put on some weight. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think his current playing weight is not sustainable, but I think Baltimore understood that when they drafted him. I think this is the year we're going to see it be the most issue for him, because I feel like with a proper NFL offseason next year, when this season is over with, he can get into the Ravens strength program for a full offseason. It's the same thing also. Their second round pick, Roger Rosengarten, he has great athleticism, but it's kind of the same problem where, there's not enough frame on him. He's kind of a slender guy compared to some of the others at his position. And we saw Wiggins is a player that isn't afraid of contact. He's a physical player. He goes out there. But of course, there is a difference when you're taking that leap from college to the NFL and some of the players you're going up against each and every week. So he did what he was supposed to do in this one. I thought he used the speed well. I think the balance that the Ravens and he are going to have to find together is what weight can he realistically play at where he doesn't lose his speed, or at least lose enough of it to where it actually feels bad for him, because he has that sub 4.3 speed. We know that's the biggest part of his game, where he has that recovery speed. He can go toe to toe with some of these track meet offenses. But if he plays it the way he is now, we kind of saw this with another former Ravens corner now, Marcus Peters, who also is kind of like that slender build, and he made business decisions a lot of the time that he wasn't going to get involved in a tackle here. He was going to let a guy run past him there. And I think that actually caused a lot of issues. And I think it was the reason he got cut from the Raiders when he went there, is he didn't show that effort. But Wiggins shows that. Like, Wiggins gets in the middle of things. He wants to be involved in run support. And I think that will result in some injuries if the frame stays the way it is. So I agree with you. I think long-term, he's probably going to have to put on a little bit of weight. But can they find a number together to where maybe he loses 5% of that speed, but he's able to gain a lot more durability and bulk? Because historically, the Ravens do love, that profile. Marlon Humphrey is a super bulky corner. Kyle Hamilton is a super bulky safety. Brandon Stevens, all these guys. I feel like long-term, the solution for them is to find a balance between the weight and the speed that makes Wiggins feel as comfortable as he can while still having added durability.
All right, between me and you.
Also, we're not here.
Yeah, you're not here. You're not here. Nobody else is here. It's just between me and him. Do you? Yeah, she put a little sign up.
Yeah, there you
Do
go.
you think that Rashad Bateman is the number 2 on this team? I'm trying to put my mind around it. I like the guy. I loved when we drafted him. I was happy, but he's been hurt the last couple years, and well, not last year, but the previous years. And it's like, is this guy going to finally break out? Because one, he can't stay healthy during training camp. I don't understand. I don't get it. But what are your thoughts? Do you think he's going to be healthy?
I think, yeah, for me, if he can stay healthy, I do predict a breakout. But as you talked about, that's the biggest question, is can he stay on the field? We've seen, if this is a new thing that happened on Monday in practice where he pulled up and John Harbaugh very clearly did not want to talk about it after the fact, even though he said he'd be fine. I think there's frustration for everybody involved right now. Rashad Bateman, the coaching staff, the medical staff, obviously the fan base, and rightfully so. And Bateman even talked about that himself. He said, if the fans are frustrated with me, I get it. Like, I understand. But this would be 3 injuries in 3 weeks of training camp, all related to different things. If this is a different injury he suffered today, where apparently he pulled up on a route when he returned after missing some time, after kind of a freak falling on the football accident after catching a pass. But they have indicated that they believe in him, and there's been no indication that they don't. They brought in guys not to compete with him, but to compliment him. Everybody's gone up on the podium, has complimented him as well, and been very, okay, this is the guy, he's breaking out. I personally would have tried to add somebody else just for insurance purposes, because I think while Nelson Aguilar showed a lot for them last season, he was, I think, better than anybody anticipated. him getting that bump from number 4 to number 3 with Odell now being in Miami. Is that the right role for him? Can Tez Walker come on quickly enough to be able to supplant a role if Bateman has to miss time? There are still some players out there. I mean, Michael Thomas is out there, Hunter Renfrow. Are those needle movers enough, though, for them? My dream target for them was Courtland Sutton. I felt like he, with contract and the ability, that would have been like the perfect number 2 guy to put in this offense with Zay Flowers and have Bateman be the 3. I don't think this is a make or break year for Bateman in terms of his, he's not going to be on the team next season if he doesn't perform well, but I think this is a make or break year in terms of the role that they give him. I think this is the last chance for him to prove, hey, I can go out there and I can take on a big role, because the contract is 3 years, $15 million, 3 years, $16 million. That's a steal in this wide receiver market where guys are getting, Gabe Davis got $13 million. Darnell Mooney got $13 million, getting Bateman for 17 or whatever it was total. That's a good contract. So he has value there. But you can't continue playing the game with him if you can't put it together this season, because they're giving him every opportunity. I think he will be the 2. He'll get that opportunity. But then I know the worry is kind of like we saw this in 2022 when they decided to bring nobody and make Bateman the 1, make Devin Duvernay the 2, and then everybody got injured and it was just a mess. So he has all the talent in the world. I still believe in Rashad Bateman if he can stay healthy, but he has to prove that he can go out there, because he and Lamar are so far behind in the chemistry department. They have to figure that out in training camp. But again, Lamar missed time with an illness. Bateman's missed time with an injury. We're kind of going through that same cycle right now. Hopefully that can change and we can kind of get more consistent performances. But I know that there's a lot of worry within the fan base about that number 2 spot for sure, because, you have Zay and that's a start. But other than that, you don't want to rely too heavy on him. Andrews unlikely to be your entire passing offense. Got to have other guys step up too.
Oh, man. We've seen we've seen Josh Johnson and Devin Leary on Friday. Not good. Not good at all. Do you think that we should, upgrade the backup QB, or do you think we should give them another week, maybe this Saturday, to see what they got?
I'd probably give him another week, but if we don't see enough improvement there, I think that, I'm not hitting the panic button right now, but if we see another poor performance by again, every quarterback on the roster not named Lamar Jackson, I think you do have to maybe look for an upgrade there, because look, Johnson's had a heck of a career. He's been everywhere. It feels like NFL, every league, it seems like too. But at this point, we know if Lamar Jackson goes down, he has to miss any time. Like, we know if Lamar's out for the year, then there's Super Bowl chances. They go from up here to, sinking way down there. But the way that I try to look at it is, what if Lamar has to miss like 3 games or 4 games, like a month, and you're calling upon a guy to go out there, let's say it's October, and you say, all right, Lamar's going to miss 4 games. We have to get somebody out there that's going to hopefully help us win these next 4 games. If you lose these 4 games, you're in a pretty bad spot, even though it's October. So I don't look at it as, oh, well, yeah, if Lamar gets injured, the Super Bowl hopes are up in flames. I think everybody knows that if Lamar goes down, it's kind of like, all right, what are we doing here? They're not going to throw in the towel, but Lamar's the thing that makes the gears turn. But are you trusting Josh Johnson in a 4-game situation, or however long it is if Lamar has to miss time? Because the Ravens will still be in it. Lamar would still come back at that point. So I know out there right now, Ryan Tannehill's been the big name that everybody's talking about. Obviously, he has the connection with Derrick Henry from the Tennessee days and how that would work. I know that, skill set wise, Ryan Tannehill is just a little less athletic than Lamar Jackson, just a tiny bit, just a little bit over there. I see the thumbs down too. I get it. But I feel like a dark horse is, I don't know what's going on with Tyler Huntley right now in Cleveland. That move confused me off the jump, where he's the 4th quarterback there, right? I don't think he makes that team unless they keep 4 quarterbacks. I thought he was going to go to a place where he can compete for a starting job, maybe get that opportunity. I thought he deserved it after, didn't show like everything in the world in Baltimore, but I think he showed enough to at least have a shot. Could they bring back him as a backup option? I mean, I think it's better than Josh Johnson at this point. So it's definitely something to monitor for me.
All right. Let me ask you, what do you think is the most talented division right now, the AFC North or the NFC North?
Well, I got to go AFC North. I think that every team in that division could win 10 games this season. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me one bit. Baltimore obviously has the upper hand going into the season with the division crown here in Baltimore, but Cincinnati's getting Joe Burrow back. And that obviously is a huge boost, regardless. I mean, they're a team that it's kind of like the Lamar situation in Baltimore. If any of these guys lose their franchise quarterbacks, obviously the ceiling goes down. And we saw that even with Jake Browning doing some stuff for them last season. It still felt, Joe Burrow would have helped them. Pittsburgh needed anything other than Kenny Pickett and Mr. Trubisky. I mean, it was the bottom of the barrel there for them. And even though Russell Wilson, we all know, it was a failure in Denver, Justin Fields had, not work out in Chicago, but that's an upgrade. It's crazy to say, but it is an upgrade over there for Pittsburgh. And that's actually the team Lamar struggled the most against in his career. I believe in the last 8 games, Lamar and the Ravens are 1-7 in those games. So that Pittsburgh defense is no joke. And we know Patrick Queen went over there and started talking about the Baltimore food and everything, and Pittsburgh is better and all this stuff. So that added fuel to the rivalry most definitely. And then Cleveland, I mean, it's all on Deshaun Watson's shoulders, I feel like. But then again, Joe Flacco came in there and he led them to the playoffs. So it's kind of like, can they survive with Jameis Winston if Watson doesn't work out? I don't know, but I mean, it feels like they have to get some level.
I like Jameis.
I think the answer to that question, I think it's no. Jameis against these defenses in the AFC North, that's a lot of interceptions I see on the table for Jameis. But I still feel like if Deshaun Watson can find any of that, like Houston magic, okay, maybe they're back. But what has he shown us in his 2 years in Cleveland that his proven? I mean, he had 1 game and it was against the Ravens, and then he broke his shoulder. He was out for the season. Yeah. So I think the NFC North is super talented. Don't get me wrong, but man, I got to give it to the AFC North.
And then let me follow up with asking you, who do you think would have a more disappointing season in the playoffs, Lamar or Dak?
That's the question everybody's talking about right now. I don't know. I feel like Dak is, to me, especially after how they went out last year to Green Bay, it felt like that's like the bottom. Where Lamar has he been up to standard in the playoffs? No. Like, he has to be better in the playoffs. But we also, it feels like we're washing away like the Houston game last season when he was dominant in that game, and these others as well, where that was Lamar's first AFC championship, did not play up to standard in there, had a couple of bad throws. It wasn't actually, of course, it wasn't all on him too. Like, none of these losses are all on Lamar, but that's the narrative people want to run with because obviously he's the quarterback, and that's just how it goes for him, unfortunately, where to me, and I've said this, his successes, he gets plenty of praise, but his mistakes seem to be magnified more than everybody else's, where people have that microscope on him, and whenever Lamar does something, and then another one of these quarterbacks does it, it's always, well, Lamar's the one that gets in trouble for it. And then, a Mahomes or somebody does not, even though they're kind of working with the same thing. For example, Mahomes had bad wide receivers last year, and everyone was like, they need to help Mahomes. And then with Lamar, where have his star receivers been? And it's all been, can Lamar carry the team? Lamar's not living up to the standard. Lamar's not elevating his guys, which Lamar does, by the way. But in the playoffs, he knows he has to be better. Everybody knows he has to be better. But to me, Dak and his playoff performances, I think Dak is 2-5. Lamar's 2-4, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I flipped those around. But they're on the same playing field. But I think Dak has had more just bad playoff moments, even though Lamar has had his. Dak's also in his 30s. Lamar still has a lot of time. So I think that, to me, I'm going Dak there.
How do you see the offensive line playing out, Kevin?
Yeah, it's a good question because they lost 60% of their guys, their starters. And if you lose 60% of your starters as a competing team, you have to be sure about the guys who are playing in there. And I think they're sure about 2 of them. I think they like Andrew Voorhees a lot, and I think he showed that in the first preseason game. I think he is all but a lock for that left guard spot. And then Roger Rosengarten, while again, there is the concern a little bit about his weight and kind of his functional strength, his pass protection is incredible. His foot speed is great. And I feel like he's going to be the guy to win that right tackle job. They started Daniel Falele at the right guard position. They're trying to replace Kevin Zeitler there, who is one of the more consistent players in the business in the offensive line department. He didn't look great. I thought it wasn't all terrible, but he didn't look wonderful. So the options there, it's Ben Cleveland. It's maybe Patrick McCary, but I think they want to use him as their 6th offensive lineman, so I'm kind of ruling him out. Ronnie Stanley's the big X factor here, though. Like, obviously, we can talk about the young players' performances and how they can do. I expect growing pains. You're trying to gel a new unit together. but it's going to be Ronnie's health. We saw Ronnie pick it up towards the end of the season last year, especially in the playoffs, because they were running that rotation when McCary would come in for him for a drive, and then Daniel Falele would come in for Morgan Moses for a drive, and they'd rotate guys in and out, and that helped Stanley get rest. It helped him not have as much stress on him in terms of a physical perspective, and that helped him. But if Stanley can play the whole year healthy and play effectively, get back to not even, let's just say 70% of what he was at his peak, that's good enough for them. But if he's continuing to be in and out of the lineup, they're testing their depth, that's where it could be an issue, because since they're going so young, they don't have a ton of other talent behind the other young talent they're going to start already. So that's where you kind of get into a tricky situation where you're going to have to rely on a lot of your guys to be healthy this season, or else you might be in a bit of trouble, especially when it comes to a consistency perspective.
Out of everybody in the AFC North, who do you think is the best team that's going to give us the most trouble?
Oh, it feels right now like Cincinnati's that team, but those Mike Tomlin Steelers, man, they always find a way, and I don't know how it's that Mike Tomlin magic, I guess is what people call it, where the non-losing seasons and making the most out of nothing and stuff along those lines. I think that's the team Lamar and the Ravens have to figure out. It's not just a Lamar thing either recently, right? It's the entire team. Cincinnati, I'm very curious because Mike McDonald was that team's kryptonite. They could not figure out Mike McDonald for the life of them. It felt like every time he and Joe Burrow, dueled together, Mike McDonald was coming out victorious almost every single time when it mattered. Now, is Zach Orr going to be able to replicate that? The defense isn't going to change all that much. Of course, it's a new system with Zach Orr. You're going to implement that. But the reason they went internal with that was to keep the system in place, which they did with Don Martindale. They did with Dean Pease, and you can go back and back and back for those systems. But with Pittsburgh, their defense has been so challenging for them. They have a new offensive system now with Arthur Smith coming in. They're expected to heavily feature their running game and Pat Freiermuth in that tight end room. And if George Pickens can take that next step and be a pure alpha number one receiver, which I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh believe right now, it'll be challenging. But again, that all hinges on the quarterback play. Can you put Russell Wilson out there twice a year against this Ravens defense and expect 30 points? The answer to that question is no. I mean, you know that it's going to be – and those Ravens Steelers games are always like 13-10 with it coming down to like late in the fourth quarter. It's a sloppy game. The Ravens, one of those games in Pittsburgh last year had 7 drops. And it's one of those games where one team finds a way to win off of the other's mistakes. And that's what Pittsburgh has done to the Ravens recently. So I feel like it'll come down to Baltimore and Cincinnati, but I really still think that Baltimore has to figure out Pittsburgh in the long run.
Do you think that the Pittsburgh Steelers trade for Brandon Ayuk?
I feel like if there is a team that would do it, it would be them. I mean, Ayuk, and the thing with that situation too is it's kind of unique because he kind of picks where he goes, because he can just deny to, he said New England, I'm not signing there. I'm not doing that. It could be a rental, but that's not worth it for any team giving up what they need to get Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco. I think Pittsburgh has the cap situation to do it right now. Russell Wilson signed there for cheap. Justin Fields is still on a rookie deal. So they have the opportunity to go out there and add a wide receiver. I think, honestly, and look, is someone who covers the Ravens, I would hate it from a perspective of like it's like the last thing that I think this whole AFC wants to see. But I can't really find another team. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland, apparently. New England is out of the picture. I think it's between Pittsburgh and him just staying in San Francisco. Or maybe that's what it was all along. This was all a tactic to get the 49ers to restart those conversations, up that offer, and all works out. And then maybe they try to move Debo next offseason. Who knows what they try to do. But I feel like at this point, it's either the Pittsburgh thing works out or he just stays in San Francisco, gets the money he wants, or there's some compromise. And then they just figure out what to do with one of their other guys, because that San Francisco cap situation – they're going to have to move off of somebody at some point. They're paying everybody. So I don't know. It's between one or the other, between Debo and Brandon Ayuk. And I'm actually very curious to see who they pick.
I got one more question for you. Do you think Zach Orr gets the best out of this defense, like our previous defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald? Or do you think we take not a dramatic drop-off, but a little bit of a drop-off?
I think yes to both. I think a little drop off to me is like anywhere from 2 to 4. They were the best defense and they put up historic numbers last season. And realistically, I go back to 2019, Lamar's first MVP season, when he obviously put up historic passing numbers and rushing numbers as well. I mean, that whole offense was historic. And I kind of warned people for that 2020 season. I said, it is very likely that Lamar takes a step back in terms of box score statistics, but improves in efficiency. Because if you expect an increase in box score statistics every season, we're in 2024 now, we'd be up to 60 touchdowns per season for Lamar. And then that's not realistic. So for the defense, it's kind of the same thing where they had a franchise high in sacks. They had, all these historic numbers. I think their efficiency goes up this season, but I think in terms of will they replicate their box score statistics, maybe not to the level they did, but this is still a top 5 defense minimum. Because while they lost Patrick Queen, they lost Jadeveon Clowney, they lost some of these guys, I think people are talking about them and talking about the team in general, honestly, like they lost their stars. Like Roquan Smith is no longer there. Like Kyle Hamilton is no longer there. And Matabike and Marlon Humphrey and whoever else you want to put in that conversation, they have the guys to replace the guys that they lost. It's going to be a matter of can they step up? But I think we'd be having a much more serious conversation about the defense had they lost Roquan Smith or had they lost Marlon Humphrey, because those are some of the players, obviously Hamilton and everybody, that are the lifebloods of your unit. So I think by the end of the season, Zach Orr is going to get the best out of his unit. And Kyle Hamilton talked a bit about that during the preseason game where he said, it's no disrespect to Mike McDonald, gave Mike McDonald his flowers and everything, said he was great, but ended up saying that, look, Zach Orr has that player mentality. He's been there. He's done what we're doing right now. And to have that is very valuable. He's someone who is very passionate, wants to be on the sideline with his guys, look into their eyes, see the emotion. He said all that at his introductory press conference. I expect there to be growing pains. I mean, look, he has no easy schedule to open up this season. He has to go up against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and all those guys in week 1 as a first-time play caller. You got guys like Dak and Joe Burrow and everybody coming up in those first 5 weeks. It's going to be a challenge. But we saw that progression with Mike McDonald too, where that week 2 game against Miami back in 2022, they blew that, a 28-point lead, and he made all the wrong calls in that game, and everybody was wondering, okay, is this the right guy for the job? What's going on? I expect there to be some growing pains for Zach Orr, but with Mike McDonald, he turned it around the next week, and he never looked back. And I expect Zach Orr, there might be a dip, there might be a struggle here, but I think he'll respond to it because he's been in this Ravens system both as a player and as a coach. He knows what it takes. He's familiar with the guys. And I do expect a big year for Zach Orr, even though it might take a little time for him to fully warm up to full-time play calling duties. He's had enough experiences in that locker room, both as a player and as a coach, to understand what it takes.
Gotcha.
Before I do this thing when anytime somebody that's worked for the Ravens or has any type of affiliation with the Ravens, I let all my guys get their questions in because I'm the lone guy that's from further down I-95 South. But
all right.
I do have a question before we gas up the pace and go down 95 South. Have you been to all of the stadiums in the division?
I have not actually. I haven't been to a lot of games actually. I do so much work post game. I do Bleacher Report live streams and all. I haven't been able to. Obviously, M&T Bank, they actually added a lot of new stuff,
right?
And I expect everybody's expected to get in on that action. I've actually been to. I've been to none of the other 3.
Oof. I was sure about to ask. There's a major upgrade. I think they have to go through a couple more approval processes, but there's about to be a major upgrade for the Cleveland Browns. But I was just gonna ask about that. But so if we gas up this pacer, I'm a Commanders fan.
Okay.
I hear these guys talk about how great the organization is, how well run it is, and it's the complete opposite down here. Things are changing, but I know it's gonna take some time. One, before I get more further into it, Brandon Ayuk wanted to go to the Commanders. I think he absolutely wanted to go to the Commanders, but we have a legit GM, and spending that type of money, like you were saying earlier, $30+ million a year wide receiver, probably not the greatest, especially with the offensive line that we have, the makeshift offensive line, if you will. I don't know if you got any chance to look at any glimpses of Jaden Daniels with the Jets. I saw some things that raving about him in training camp. I wanted to know what were your thoughts on what you've seen and what you've heard, or if you heard anything coming out of Commanders camp.
No, from everything, talking even just with our Locked On Commanders host, David Harrison, who covers training camp down there, it feels like he's doing everything he needs to be doing right now. It feels like he's looking sharp, looking good. I mean, the Jets debut that he had, I mean, he impressed, and David talked about that as well, where he looks poised for a rookie. And I think for a lot of people, obviously all eyes are on Caleb Williams and kind of like the whole fanfare over there in Chicago and what's going on. But Jaden Daniels is one of these guys that I'm super excited about because he has that franchise quarterback pedigree to him. And I feel like he could be this turning piece for them. And one of the big things that I look at and some of the stuff that I've talked about with, some of these teams who have rookie quarterbacks is what are the pieces like around these guys? Because, you talked about the offensive line and kind of what's going on there. There's a little work to be done on the offensive line for sure. But look, having Terry McLaurin out there is not a bad wide receiver one to have. Obviously, they're expecting some other guys to step up as well. But I think with this Cliff Kingsbury offense and kind of the way that they can grow together, first time, well, I know Cliff Kingsbury has his experience, but with Kingsbury going to the Commanders for the first time, having Jaden Daniels come in as a rookie, that's a good guy to have in that offensive system to be able to grow together and alongside one another. So I know that there was a Kingsbury connection with Caleb Williams, and everybody's like, oh, what if Caleb Williams was the guy? And we know the local connections too. But I think Jaden Daniels is a 1-2 pick combo. Those two have the ability to kind of grow alongside each other. And I love that pick. I thought that they should not overthink it. If they went Drake May, I thought they would have been overthinking it. I thought they made the safe and smart pick with Jaden Daniels.
Indeed. I feel great about it. And to Raj's point, you talking about Nate Wiggins. Listen, as long as he's not Emmanuel Forbes, y'all should be all right.
I know Forbes had some bad moments in those joint practices last year with the Ravens. So I know it hasn't looked too good for him recently.
It just makes me, I want to forget about Ron Rivera, and that pick just is not going to let me forget about it. First round pick, and he's looking like a bust. I don't know what more we can do with him. I don't know what defensive coordinator Joe Witt or Dan Quinn can do, but we'll see how it goes. But if he's my number one corner, I'm terrified. If you've seen our schedule, the top receiver, we got some of the best receivers that we're going to face. I am terrified.
Yeah, that's another test for him. I know. And in that draft, I was loving Christian Gonzalez, and I didn't know he was going to fall all the way to New England. That was the guy that I thought they should have gone with. But yeah, there you go. I know you agree with me now with that reaction.
We did a live stream. He was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Chris, this has to be. I'm surprised he fell that far.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm so surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's there. Make the pick. Make the pick. Who? Oh, and here come the Patriots right behind us. Christian Gonzalez. God, dog. And he was playing amazing until he got his season into injury. So I don't feel good about that draft, that pick, or anything. So we'll see what happens. But for once, I like our linebacking core. I love the linebacking core. I haven't said that in years. So there's some positives, but there's still some things to work on.
Yeah, getting a vet in there like Bobby Wagner helps everybody. So I like that for him.
While we're still on the subject of the NFL, when do you see an 18-game season coming?
Ooh.
Oh, it's got to be coming soon. It has to be coming soon. I mean, it's added opportunity. Especially with who was it, Joe Burrow, who said something about it, and that kind of got all those the media went crazy about that. But we're in 2024 now. I might expect something by 2026 or 2027. I think next year would be a little early. I wouldn't be shocked if they just kind of brute forced it next year, but I feel like 2026 is probably the year that they might do some revisions and figure things out maybe.
Do you see it going any higher than 18 games, or that's going to be the limit?
I'd be pretty shocked. I mean, but then again, I said I'd be shocked if it went to 17 games. So here we are. But I don't know. I think that will probably, because the thing I'm also kind of keeping my eye on is this expansion. Like, is there going to be an expansion? What does that look like? Is there going to be a team in London? Are they going to move to Mexico City? Are they going to make this game international? They've certainly been hyping it up as they're trying. I think that makes it's too much conflicting time zones, in my opinion. I don't really know how that would work with going back and forth. And do you make two separate leagues? Like, what do you do with that? But I feel like the 18-game schedule is something that we're going to see a lot sooner than something like that. But man, it really seems like the NFL's pushing to make this game international.
You think we'll ever see do you think we'll ever see NFL football in the Olympics?
Oh, I think they'd have to probably expand it a little more. I mean, again, it would be to a much bigger scale that USA basketball is on right now. Where basketball is a global game, right? We know basketball is a global game, but
Oh yeah.
American football is something that like you have guys that have come over and been successful from overseas, but I don't think we're nearly to that point yet to where we can field multiple countries of it. And honestly, the other question with that to me is how many guys want to participate and put their bodies on the line again? And what would the rules be? Because do they value, what would that look like? Would there be enough participation? I think you could field enough, but how many people would actually want to do it is the other thing too.
We'll see how flag football goes first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's see how flag goes, and we'll see from it. But no, I don't foresee that. I think flag is probably as far as we go because it is American football. So to try to force that into the Olympics is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that is.
I agree.
And also with the 18 games, do you think? Because I'm thinking you have to add another bye week, right?
I would definitely think you need 2 bye weeks. It'd be pretty crazy. I mean, but the thing, you would have to kind of make it on like a schedule for different teams to where it's more organized than it is now, where, one team can have a week 14 bye, the other team can have like a week
that's crazy.
4 bye. That gets a little difficult because if you have an early bye, you're playing like 4 months of football straight, where if you have like the bye in the middle, you get a nice little break in between. And I think that is a little bit of an advantage, but you're going to have teams that have bye week and then have to play the rest of the season. Like, is it a week 4, week 6?
Crazy.
Like you got to have it like a little, at least a mandatory, like spread out of like, it has to be 6 weeks apart or something like that, because you don't want to have them too close together. That helps nobody.
All right. How do you feel about the quarterbacks coming out of preseason from week 1?
I thought Caleb looked really good. And again, it's just going through his progressions and making the right reason. Every rookie quarterback has to do that, right? It's an adjustment from the college game to the NFL game. Look, Bo Nix put on a heck of a performance. Like, Bo Nix went kind of crazy. I don't know if that's going to I don't know if it's going to translate just because I don't know if they have the weapons around him right now. Like, obviously it's Cortland Sutton. They brought in Troy Franklin, but Denver's going to be, I mean, I don't expect them to do much this season, but I like Bo Nix coming out. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do much. McCarthy, I'm intrigued about McCarthy just because when you have Justin Jefferson on the other side, man, I mean, that helps you automatically. You're set up for success when you have him there. They brought in Aaron Jones, who was a great pass catching back. So I think they set up JJ. Honestly, I think all the rookies, I mean, even Drake May, everybody seems impressed. But the one thing in New England, at least, is that Drake May is not a lock to be the starter. Obviously, they brought back Jacoby. And is he going to be the guy there? But Joe Milton looks good. I was mad when the Patriots. I wanted him in a Baltimore uniform because I thought, look, the Ravens need a backup quarterback. He was the last guy I would have taken in that backup quarterback situation. He has a strong arm, man. He can fling that thing. And then they took Devin Leary, and I was kind of like, okay.
That's how I was. I was like,
yeah. I was like, I don't really know, but Joe Milton would have been my guy. So does he make some quarterback controversy? It'd be crazy if they started a 6th-round rookie over their 3rd overall pick, if that's what it came down to. But you know what? Talent is talent. So you gotta find a way to use it.
I mean, they would know because they didn't. And we've seen this.
This exact thing. Yep.
We've seen this 24 years ago.
All right, Kevin, before we get you out of here, we got to get your Super Bowl prediction. The season is almost here. How do you see the AFC playing out? Maybe who are some teams that we should watch, and the NFC as well? And who do you think plays in New Orleans? Do the Ravens possibly return back?
I think in the AFC, Baltimore's obviously a team you got to watch. Cincinnati as well. I think even though Buffalo had to get rid of a lot of vets, I don't think you can rule out a team with Josh Allen as long as he's healthy. And they certainly tried to add some pieces around him, even though Stephon Diggs is no longer there. The Jets are such a wild card to me with Aaron Rodgers and how that ends up going. I think Miami's one of the dark horses. Well, maybe not. Dark horse might not be the right word, but I still think that.
No, it is.
Yeah. They're a team that, like, if they can get their pass rushers back and if Tua can take that step, if he can get that deep ball going a little more, they certainly have a chance. And then in the AFC South, I mean, I love Houston's roster personally. I think they're a team to me that, like, I think they're AFC championship material this season. Can't count out teams like Tennessee. I think is my pure dark horse. Like, that's a team that, like, I love what they did surrounding Will Levis with talent. They added some defensive pieces as well. they're a team that like could certainly vie for at least like that 5th seed, like top wild card spot, if not the division. And then Kansas City's like obviously that's the team. In the NFC, it's not as stacked as the AFC is, but Philadelphia, Dallas, San Fran, obviously. Nobody in the NFC South really scares me. If I'm in that conference, I don't think there's anybody in that conference that does anything for me, unfortunately for them. And then, man, I just think Green Bay, Jordan Love, obviously Detroit. And in terms of who I think plays in the Super Bowl, I'm going to go New Orleans rematch. I'm going to go Ravens 49ers. And I'll say the Ravens win it again. But if you told me it was the 49ers, I wouldn't be shocked.
Fair.
That's fair. That's fair.
We would just be happy to get there at this point, getting over the hump.
That's exactly it.
We get there, we trying to win.
Just
get there. No, we win.
You don't know when you're going back, so you got to try to win it then.
Because then the conversation is Lamar didn't win a Super Bowl like Cam Newton.
Oh, it would be. It's already exhausting now. It'd be 10 times worse if that were to happen. They wouldn't give him any credit. They just tear him down for the loss, and it's not fair, man. I don't know what he has to do, but
he has to impress Nick Wright. That's what he has to do.
Hey, man.
There we go.
And I like Nick Wright too.
That's step one right there. And I'm a Nuggets fan, and Nick Wright is also a Jokic hater. So that's double trouble for me.
You think the Nuggets going to bounce back this season?
I hope so. I mean, now I want to do it for Russ because Russ is now on a squad, and so I'm like, hey, let's get Russ that first ring. And now there's all the KD drama with Swiper, who's my guy over at Locked On Nuggets, and because the Nuggets Nation. Obviously, for me, I was rooting for USA, and if it wasn't USA, I was rooting for Serbia in Jokic. But obviously, Swiper was rooting for both teams. KD caught a wind of it. He called out Nuggets fans. He called out like all the people rooting for Serbia. Now there's this whole KD Nuggets fan drama. So with the Russ KD rivalry, with the KD Nuggets rivalry, the Nuggets play the Suns on Christmas. Man, it's gonna be about Jamal Murray though. To me, I mean, we can all be honest. In the Olympics, he did not look right. He did not look great. So. If you've seen the Jamal Murray doppelganger memes of that TikToker who looks like him and he has the jersey on and everything, we might be seeing a lot more of those if he can't bounce back, and he's going to sign a max contract. So that to me is a little worrisome, but we're going to see. I'm a Jamal Murray guy, but we're going to see how it plays out for him.
I wish that Jamal Murray showed up when he was playing the Lakers, but that's neither here nor there.
Man, see, it's some point that like, look, I have loved especially growing up rooting for the team and seeing Kobe just, destroy them over and over and over again. To have the Nuggets kind of be on top of that rivalry now, it feels good. But at some point, I mean, it's LeBron. There has to be a win or two in the books for him. I don't really know what it takes, but that's the thing too. Is like if AD stays healthy and LeBron can stay healthy at 40 years old, I mean, that's still a tough duo to stop.
Crazy. He's the best. He looked like the best player in the Olympics.
Man, he could play till he's 50. He could play till he's 50.
Well, Kevin, you are a fantastic guy. We got to have you back before the season is over to see how the predictions work out. Let the people know how to keep up with you and what you got cooking up. I know you're never sleeping, as you mentioned.
Yeah, never sleeping, guys. I appreciate it. This was a blast. Appreciate you having me on. You can find me over at Locked On Ravens 5 days a week. We go live over there to do bonus game reactions as well. We do live after every piece of Ravens big news, but our general show is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern. You can subscribe in video form, follow in audio form. I also write over at USA Today's Ravens Wire. You can find my written content over there. I do some video content for Bleacher Report as well. You can find me over on the Bleacher Report app doing stuff. And then obviously the Ryan Rickman Show as well. Talking Orioles, talking Ravens, talking Baltimore sports. So Baltimore sports is fun right now. Orioles are hot. Ravens are hot. So it's a good time to be a Baltimore sports fan.
Yeah, Kevin, we may have to have you back with those O's, man. I'm a little worried right now.
Let me ask you then. Orioles or Yankees? Who wins the division?
Ooh.
Man, the Yankees are well, let me not talk like the Orioles aren't consistent. But like I feel like the Yankees, man, it's Judge and Soto. And then I guess Jazz is kind of doing his thing over there right now. But I'm going O's, man. I gotta go with them. They have too much. You're a Yankees guy?
Yeah, through and through.
All right, man. Judge is awesome, man.
They did lose to the White Sox tonight, Dre, who have 91 losses, by the way. So
hey, it's a long season.
Hey,
162 games.
1 out of 162. There you go.
Kevin, thank you again, brother. We'll be talking to you. We'll have you back on. Probably talk maybe some Orioles postseason and see how the
Yeah.
Ravens are doing maybe midway through the season. We appreciate you, my brother, and keep up the great work.
Absolutely, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Give it up one
Thank you
more
for
time.
coming on,
Appreciate it.
Kevin.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, man.
Give it up one more time to Kevin Oestreicher, everybody. Locked on Ravens, RavensWire, USA Today.com. Make sure you check out his content. And let's do